Hello, I'm Jude Scott, and this is part 2 of the Folded Nib Pen. Paint, draw and sketch with these wonderful pens produce amazing ragged edges, beautiful marks, bold strokes and big slashes of colour that will make your work a standout. I'm going to draw today with the nib pen. I've got some salvia here. It looks very, very dark in the video, but it's actually a purple with almost black little stamens below the petals. So the inks that I've got mixed up here, sorry about the video, it'll clear in just a moment. I've got some black mixed up, which I probably won't use. The blue is 2 shades of Holbein watercolours, Prussian blue and ultramarine. The red is a mixture of Quinacridone red and rose madder. And the yellow I've got is a mixture of Quinacridone gold, and some Aureolin yellow. I think the base of that little bowl, which is a favourite of mine, is a little bit narrow. So I'm just going to start with some yellow, and then I'll drop in some of the blue to make a really dark green. The paper that I'm using is Bao Hong. It's a fantastic paper. I love the roughness of it. Even though it's only a cold press paper, it's not as rough as Bao Hong rough paper. If the advantage of Bao Hong is that one side is always hot pressed, so it's smooth, and the other side is cold pressed, rough or hot pressed. So you've got 2 types of paper in the one, so it's really versatile, great to use. So I'm just going to put in some little buds at the top. Depending how you hold your pen, you get different marks. I want very fine lines here to start with, and you'll notice that when I want broader strokes, I'll use like the flat, more the broader edge like that of the pen, and you can get some really bold marks. I'm using Prussian blue and ultramarine, so it's quite strong, and it's very strong pigment that I've mixed up. So you can always add a bit of water to it if you want it paler, but when it dries, it'll probably dry 20% lighter because there's a lot of water there. So just bear that in mind. It's on dry paper. If you're painting onto wet paper or damp paper, the pigment will lighten even further, so have it nice and strong. It leaves you some room to do other things, add splashes of water or colour, but if you start with it too pale, I find that your painting, once it's dry, can look a little bit lacklustre. So I'm rinsing my brush between dipping it into each pot of colour. Let's try just putting the red down first this time instead of using the blue first, and see what the difference is. The little square that I'm using there to dry my nib on is just a car cleaning sponge from like the cheapy shops, and it's very, very high density foam, and it slurps all the extra water out of your nib pen when you're drawing. Just put a little bit more red into that, and maybe a bit more blue into that. So you can see I've got some very light, fine stamen edges there, but the actual stem of the plant is quite raggedy when you see it, and that's because of the rough texture of the paper. So you can go mad here with colour. You can put in as many petals and little flowers as you want, and you can be as abstract as you want. I'm doing fairly realistic. I think it's probably good for a demo to do fairly realistic demo, and then you can, it's up to you where you go with your work, whether you want to stay fairly realistic or go completely abstract. So this is just a demo on how to different ways to use your folded nib pen. So the actual nibs part of this is aluminium. You can make them from soda cans or soft drink cans or beer cans, whatever you're drinking at the time, but they're far too soft. I've tried that and it doesn't work. So I've actually bought aluminium, and I've made up these pens with aluminium. So it holds a lot of liquid so that you can draw fairly bold lines over quite a bit of time with these. Just remember to rinse your brush, or your pen rather, between dipping it into each pot of colour. Otherwise you're going to get a beautiful grey, because they'll all combine and make grey and you won't be happy. It'll make your work look quite dull. So here I'm just sketching in some leaves. Put a bit of blue with that. Wondering where I'll go next, how much or how little to add in. Make that a little bit darker. So making it the stem really quite dark. I think we'll put in another leaf here. And a bit more water to get that pigment to flow over the surface of the paper with your pen. It's the same as, really when you're using a paintbrush, but you get much finer lines, and you get that kind of casual, sketchy look that is a little bit more difficult to achieve, well, for me anyway, with the brush. And I think you don't get as precious when you're sort of drawing. It's more casual and you can relax and really enjoy what you're doing. So as you can see, you can get super fine lines, really beautiful lines and marks. Add a bit of depth to that with some blue. And the yellow is a mixture of Quinacridone gold and Aureolin yellow. And I'll put everything that I've used in the description underneath the video when I've finished. So you can also drop water in. You don't have to keep using pigment. You can drop water in and get some magical effects happening as that watercolour just keeps moving over the surface of the paper. Watercolour is the only medium that keeps evolving, the look keeps changing until it's completely dry, which is another reason that I love watercolour. It can be either fabulous to use, or it can be very frustrating if it just won't do what you want it to. But probably the best thing is not to try too hard, relax, kick back and just enjoy it. You can always darken some of these areas up a little bit. Drop a bit more dark in for a bit of drama. I don't think that watercolours should be wishy-washy. I like mine bold, but that's just a personal preference. I think there's no right or wrong way to paint anything. Just paint it your way. Probably starting to fiddle a bit here. So maybe that's time to finish. If you've got plenty of pigment, you just cannot beat the looks of splatters that you can achieve with your nib pen. They are fabulous. They seem to be more controlled than if you use a brush for the same thing. So thanks very much for watching. Here's the finished painting. Hope you like it. Please try a nib pen if you've not used one before. They are just great. You have fun for casual drawings, for sketching, and as you can see, you can even actually do a whole painting with them.